So during record time, first of all, it generates a VB scripting for each action you perform, for each operation you perform on the objects present in the application. It generates the VB scripting line of code. Secondly, it will store those objects along with the object information in the repository. Store the objects on which you are performing the application or operations. Like see, here you are performing some set operation on the agent name. Similarly, set secure method on the password and click on OK button. So on whatever objects you are doing some operation, those objects will be stored in a place called repository. Like see, first of all, you can compare this with the human brain. Whenever you see any object, first of all, you will categorize the object into which class it belongs to, which type of object. I mean, whether it is an animal or a bird, right? First you classify and then you will identify the features of that particular animal and store those features or a class or whatever the regarding the information of the object will be stored in your brain. Again, when you need to recall it or name it, you will use the information which is stored in your brain. The same thing happens here also. The object information and the objects will be stored in a place called repository. It's just like a brain in our body. This object repository is like a storage place for the objects and their properties. All the information of the objects will be stored. Object information is nothing but their properties and corresponding values. And one more thing, whenever you record, objects will be stored in the repository along with their information, and those objects are only those on which you are doing some operation. Suppose let us take this scenario, login. So you are using here the edit box agent name, the edit box password and then OK button. That's all. We are not using here the cancel or help. We are not doing any operations on the other two buttons. So those two objects will not be stored in the repository. Let us check that. How to go to the repository? Here resources menu and object repository, or else you can directly click Ctrl+R. Open it. So this is your object repository and you see all your text objects in the left hand side. First object is the login. So you see all the object information on the right hand side, like name of the object, next class of the object, dialog, next repository, it's a local repository. There's one more repository called which is shared. Those are called types of repositories, which we'll be going through in the next session. So next comes the properties and their values. See here, these are description properties, text property, and the value is login. Next, native class and the value is owned window and its value. Next, coming to the next object which is OK button, name is OK and the class win button, repository is a local, text OK and native classes again button. So here this is the object repository where the objects are all stored along with their properties and values. And if you see, those are only objects on which you perform some operation. There are no cancel button or help button. So those objects which are saved in the repository are called test objects. So during record time, it generates a VB scripting for each and every operation you do on your application. And the second thing is it will store all the objects along with their object information into the repository. And the objects that are stored in the repository are called test objects. And this is your application. So during record time, those two things happens. So your information, object information is stored in the repository. Now let us see what happens during runtime. Now if you execute the script, means now if you run the script, it will go through line by line. It will try to understand each line of code and it analyzes and it identifies first of all the object by object name. This is what is called logical name. After the object class, you see name of the object. That is what is called logical name. So it identifies the object and it sees the object name, go to the repository, okay, then fetch the information for that logical name and that object class. Like it sees a dialog of login, so it searches for the logical name and also object class matches. Now it goes to the properties and values, it fetches this information and it will compare that particular object properties and values with the object present in the application during runtime. Means suppose you might have recorded this in some 3a.exe. There are different versions of a flight reservation application. Suppose you used this for flight 3a.exe. You executed or you recorded this in flight 3a.exe and you try to run the script on flight 4a.exe. There might be differences in the property values. So it will compare the property values present in the repository with that of the property values currently present in the application. So once they match, it will uniquely identify the object and it will do the operation, like first one, set operation. Similarly, next it goes to the next line of code. During execution, you might have observed that a yellow pointer will be paused at each line for a few seconds and will execute line by line. So it pauses there, it tries to understand the script, it goes to the repository, fetches the information, then compare that information with the information currently present in the application during run session. So now it comes to the next object. Again, it fetches the information of that particular object, which is the password. It gets the information like native class equal to edit, attached text equal to password. Then it will compare that with these object properties like native class of password and attached text of password. If those two properties are having the same values, then again it uniquely identifies this password and it does the set secure operation and sets the password. Similarly, OK button. Like that, it will go line by line, fetches the information from the repository and it will compare that with the information present in the application during runtime and it identifies the object. Suppose if any object property value mismatches, then it throws a runtime error saying that object cannot be found in the repository. Means object is not identified. Suppose let us see a simple example. Let us just remove one object from the repository. How to remove an object from the repository? Just select the object whatever you want to remove and delete the object information from the repository. Here you see a delete symbol. Delete it. Are you sure you want to delete the OK object? Yes. Now the object is removed. Now try to execute the script. The OK win button object was not found in the object repository. Means it cannot identify the object because it is not present in the repository. If it is not present in the repository means during run session, it will go to the repository, it will search for this logical name OK and of type win button. Then it gets the information and need to compare it with the application during runtime. Here it need to compare it with this. But there is no information in the repository. Then it cannot compare and it cannot identify the object. So object identification fails. So for any object or for any script to work well, all the objects should be present in the repository. Otherwise, objects cannot be identified. So suppose some objects are missed from the repository. You got the error. Let us go and add the object to the repository. Even you can add the objects manually to the repository. How do you add? Just open the application. Open the repository. Here you see Add symbol, add objects to repository. Select it, then your mouse turns to hand pointer. Select the object which you want to add to the repository. I'm adding OK button. You see object selection dialog box. In that, select the object you want to add. It's also showing the hierarchy. Dialog is the parent and next win button is OK. Say OK. Now again OK button is added. Again, if you run the script, it will work fine. Okay, so that is the importance of object repository. So let us see some operations which you can perform on the repository and why to do the operations on the repository. Let us see here what are the various operations you can perform. The first one is delete operation. Suppose you don't want the object to be in the repository. You are not using that particular object anymore in your script. Suppose you don't want to use OK button. You don't want to hit the OK button. You just want these two operations. Enter the agent name, enter the password. You don't want OK button or else flight reservation window. Just select the particular object which you don't want and say delete. The particular object will be deleted. We'll see why to delete and why this scenario comes. Why do you need to delete the objects, add the objects. Next, so suppose the object is missing. Now again you need to add. Just go to this plus and select the object whichever you want to add. Fine. Suppose today you have generated the script using these four objects. Login dialog box. Next OK button. Agent name, password. Suppose tomorrow there was a new requirement and they said that there was one more field added in the login window, like a new requirement from the client, like the new object added was agent name, password and location of the agent, means where he lives. But they added one more field. Suppose you want to test that particular scenario, again you need to record the complete scenario, isn't it? Means login, enter the agent name, enter the password, again enter the value for location. Means the script is no more used. But in automation, you need to use the old scripts with some enhancements. That is the use of automation, isn't it? Or else whenever an application is changing and you keep on making modification to the script, it's no use. Again, it's time consuming. So your script should be in such a way that the same script can be used even though enhancements were made with the little modifications in your script. So what I want to do is, I want to just write a line of code related to that location, which is a new field. Let us say it's some win button, win edit, location and so on. So suppose I want to add that particular line of code. I'll add the line of code, but for the script to execute fine without errors, the particular location object should be present in the repository, isn't it? Or else see, suppose I want to do some operation on cancel button also. Then I need to record the complete scenario again. Instead of that, I just add that particular object to the repository and will write the line of code related to that operation, so that with the little modifications I can reuse the old script. So for that purpose, we have an option called add objects to repository. You can add the objects whatever you want to add. I am adding cancel button and also I will add help button. So adding objects to the repository. And in the real-time applications, your repository will be very lengthy. Suppose you do this record or else you generate the script for the application which we are using to write the test cases, like a banking application. If you use that, it itself is having some 11 or 10 fields, 10 inputs. So the repository will be very lengthy. And also it need not be that the name here you see and the name on the application need not be same. Okay, see here you are seeing help, but it need not be named as help. See here, this is called logical name. See, For the help button, here you see name. This is what is called logical name. Even though the logical name changes, your script will execute fine. Or else let us take the OK button. Let us change the button to be logical name to be login. If you rename here, the same name will be reflected here and also in the script. See here, win button of login. Or else give some more name, win button of enter. I'm just renaming the button. Previously it was OK, I just renamed as OK. So whatever I make changes to the logical name here, it is also changed in the script. So now if you execute it, the script works well. Right? Means logical name is just a name to the object. It is nothing to do with the properties of the object. See, this is the OK button. But the properties remains the same. Text property equal to OK. It remains the same. So when it compares the text property of this OK button, it matches. And hence it identifies the object. So logical name is just a name given in the object for the object in the repository. Even though you make any changes to the object logical name, the script will work without any errors. So that is what is a logical name. You can rename the objects here itself. Just select the object whichever you want to rename, right click it and say rename. So you can rename the logical name. Even you can do operations like cut, copy, delete. Once you copy it, you can paste another copy of the object. So, and suppose see your object repository is very lengthy. Suppose your application has values, has inputs of some 10 or 11 fields. As I told you, the name which is present in the repository need not be the same as the name in the application. So, suppose you want to identify this enter button in the repository in the application. You see the enter in the object repository, but you are unable to find the object here, so you cannot identify. So to locate the or to highlight the object in the application, you have one option, highlight in application. You select the particular object which you want to see in the application. You don't know what is this object mapped to. So just select the object and click on highlight in application. See, you see the OK button blinking in some highlighted color, black color. Again, if you want to check it, highlight in application so that you can map the object. Okay, enter button, enter the logical name of the object which is enter is nothing but this OK button. Or else if it is vice versa, if you know what is cancel button here but you don't identify that here in the application, then you go for locate in the repository and select that particular object and say OK. See, that particular object will be highlighted in the repository. So these are the different operations which you can perform on your object repository. And one more thing you can do is, even you can add your property values, modify your property values. Suppose tomorrow the client says he don't want the text property, means text property is nothing but the value which is displaying in the application. Here cancel. So if you don't want to be cancelled and it want it to be some let us say stop or else incorrect. Okay, so you just click on the configure button here. You see a small option here, configure. Select it and you see here constant. You can just correct it or else cancel one and say OK, so that you can execute the same script even though the name changed in the application. Means here it is cancel one. So instead of changing your script, because the script uses only the logical name, you just change the property values and reuse the script. So that is how you can modify your property values. So those are different operations which you can perform on the repositories.